Hi, I'm Dallas Grove for the Ocean Township Museum. In our continuing series of towns, which once were part of Ocean Township, today Bob Waitt, historian of Interlaken, who is also president of the Ocean Grove Historical Society, will talk with Ted Bell, whose name is almost synonymous with Ocean Grove, a town that once called itself God's Square Mile at the Jersey Shore.
Hi, my name is Bob Waitt. I'm the president of the Ocean Grove Historical Society, and we're interviewing Ted Bell, who's our curator and our historian at the Historical Society. Welcome, Ted.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Ocean Grove, how it started back in 1869, and how that all came about?
Right. Well, actually, it started as a camp meeting with some ministers and some people who were Methodists, and this was quite popular after the Civil War. And it was based on a big camp meeting that was held in Western Kentucky in 1801. They always refer to that as the second revival in America. But at that place, they had 20,000 people show up. I mean, by actual count. Now, that's pretty good for, you go out there, the only thing out there is a farm and horses, so forth. Well, anyway, the Methodists thought this camp meeting was so good that they started establishing them all over the country. And as a matter of fact, there's about 2,000 of them that they have records of. Now, a lot of them have gone by the wayside, but Ocean Grove has it. Now, Ocean Grove was the result of a 3-year search along the Jersey coast, and they went to Salem, and they almost bought some beach land there for a camp meeting. And they stayed overnight, and that was their mistake, because the mosquitoes ate them alive. And they didn't realize that. So they came up to Ocean Grove, and they finally found Ocean Grove, and ideal because it had absolute protection against general society. For example, to the north is Wesley Lake, to the south is Fletcher Lake, the Atlantic Ocean is to the east, and you can put a fence up like it's going up right now down in Texas, and that kept the other people out. You had a sort of, it was very interesting. But they went ahead and they made 100 lots, and they sold the lots for $25 plus $10.50 a year lease. In other words, you could own the lease, but you didn't own the property, and that's a very confusing thing. I live in Ocean Grove, and I paid $10.50 a year to the camp meeting for the use of that 30 by 60 piece of property that I have my house on. My taxes are like $4,000 to Neptune, and then there's another $6,000 for the value of the house, and we can talk about that later. But anyway, they went ahead and they had this camp meeting, and they had 100 lots for sale, and they didn't want to have speculation, but some people they could only buy 2 lots, which I thought was very good. And this went along for quite a few years. Now, there's a couple things that's unique about Ocean Grove, and that is that on the first 2 blocks you have a setback. Now, this is the first time in America that a setback was used. In other words, if you're sitting on your sunny porch 2 blocks back, you have a view of the ocean because every other house is set back 2 feet from your porch, and so you have this tunnel effect, and it's quite unique, and that's one of the reasons why Ocean Grove was made a planned community. It was also named a historic site, and it continued with that. It continues all the time.
Tell us about the Great Auditorium. They had originally in Founders Park, a small, and I always called it an auditorium, but it really wasn't. And then they kept moving on until they finally built the great one.
Yes, at a camp meeting, they would have they have what they call holy leisure, and there's a book on it, but a very well written book, where they combine the idea of worship with leisure, and that's one of the main things about Ocean Grove. Now, they have the auditorium 1 day a week, and they would have piano playing and singing and gospel reading, and that old time fashioned religion was quite prevalent there. And they built this shelter, combining the beams, big oak beams with the trees that were there. Ocean Grove was a large tree community, and so they had this typical pavilion, and they put branches in the top of the pavilion to stop the rain from coming in, but it didn't work quite. And but all camp meetings have an auditorium, and they have regular schedules. Now, Ocean Grove, they kept improving it. They put the roof up 20 to 20 feet, and they put the tar on to stop it from raining, but it still was not satisfactory. So Stokes, the president of the camp meeting, decided to start a campaign to put a new auditorium in. Now, the auditorium it was built in like a year and a half roughly, but it's out of cedar and white pine. It's a parabolic ceiling inside, both to the front and the back and to the sides. And at one time, all the doors were open, so that you had the feeling of being outdoors in the camp meeting. Then they put the doors on, so then they sealed them. At that time, they wanted, they controlled the air that came in. They had a ventilation system, which was unique. When we wrote our book on the auditorium, we had to convince a lot of people that the air, there was a ventilating system there that was based on nature. In other words, the ocean was warm or cold, and the land was warm and cold. And the difference between the two of them provided a breeze, either onshore or offshore. Now, if you're in Ocean Grove, even today, and you're at 4 o'clock on the beach, the winds change right away, and there's a cool breeze that comes in. And that breeze goes back about 2 miles. But you don't really notice it way back, but you notice it in the first 2 blocks. Now, that's why the first 2 blocks are so expensive, because you have natural air conditioning. And I can remember my wife's family owned a hotel a block and a half from the ocean. They had a transom over the door, and people slept with their doors open, which you can't do in a modern hotel today. And they also slept on the porches, and the breeze just lulled them to sleep. And so it was a very nice, laid-back community. Now, they also prohibited all carriages and on the streets on Sunday, and they even enforced that with cars. Now, I'm sort of an old person here, but I remember driving my car in after midnight. On Sunday, there's no cars allowed on the streets. Now, they're very famous happening. You could have a police car and you could have an ambulance. And one time, when the 2 of them were circling around, they hit each other in a street with nobody, just 2 cars. So you can imagine. you know, the fun that they have on that thing.
But Ted, since most of the homes don't have driveways, what did they do with their cars on Saturday night?
They put them outside in Bradley Beach or in Neptune or in Asbury Park. That's sort of a very interesting problem now because of this. The shore is just booming, and the cars is the bane and the of the pulse, I think, of Ocean Grove as well as Asbury Park and Bradley Beach. Now they also prohibited tobacco, and you cannot sell liquor, and you cannot read the funnies on Sunday exposed. In other words, believe it or not, I mean that was part of the living here. But Ocean Grove has these beautiful memories, and people always come back and remember walking on the boardwalk. And on the boardwalk, there's no commercial establishments. They may have an ice cream or for the on Monday through Saturday, but on Sunday everything is closed.
Ted, who were some of the famous people that were at the Great Auditorium?
Well, Ulysses S. Grant is the big one. He was here, and it was his last public appearance, and he was here at the invite of his chaplain. There was a chaplain group.
But that would have been at the old auditorium, not the new one, because he was.
That was at the old auditorium.
Yeah,
right.
it was 1884. He was.
Very vivid description. It's about 6 pages. You know how
Sure.
the writing is back there. You know. And but Grant was here. Now he came on Sunday, and they told him about their restrictions on no carriages. He says, "I will abide by the law," and he got out at Main Avenue and walked in to the auditorium, where all the chaplains and everyone else was assembled to greet him, and a very, very flowery thing and so forth. And it's part of the history.
Right.
Now,
who were some of the other ones?
well, Teddy Roosevelt was there, and then there was Nixon. Nixon's helicopter landed on Ocean Pathway. I was there while watching them, and it was quite something, The place was packed with people, and he did pretty well, I thought.
How about some of the performers?
Well, there was Caruso and Tony Bennett. The auditorium is sort of, because it's a parabolic ceiling, it's a wood ceiling, and it spans 161 feet. So it gives you an idea, it goes like that. It's like sort of like an egg. And Tony Bennett said he shut off everything, and he said, "I'm going to sing." And he sang without the orchestra, and everyone could hear him. And the acoustics in the auditorium are really unique because of the sounding board, and that's the whole attic.
John Philip Sousa, he was there.
Oh, he was here. He was here. He used to play, and he was here 13 times, and the 14th time he wasn't invited back because, as the camp meeting said, he had too many drinking songs.
Yeah, we had, going back to the Great Auditorium and some of the big names, we had Billy Graham there, we had Norman Vincent Peale, some of the religious side. Who else was there that you recall?
Stanley came in, and he was very popular. He was there for 2 years. It was very unique. You never realize the influence of TV, religious TV.
Well, Billy Graham's grandson, I think, has been there recently.
Yes.
Within the last 5 or 6 years.
Right.
So the family tradition is continuing.
We also have a choir festival where we have anywhere between 700 to 1,000 people in a choir from surrounding churches, and everyone is welcome to participate. And it's the second Sunday in July, and normally there's maybe 6,000 people in the auditorium, and it's a great concert in his So you got to realize now that this was a very strict community that one lives on it, and they even had their own police force. Now since they had a state charter, we've had a lot of people, PhD people, come in and really trying to get the magic key here to get a diploma, as well as put something out that's new. And this fascination of the church having police power involves much research. But it was there until I guess 1978, 79. It took them a couple of years to break the barrier. Now Neptune controls the streets, but from curb to curb, and then after that, the camp meeting owns the property, and they have that all on leases.
Ted, tell us what happened in 1922, for a year there when they broke away from Ocean Township.
Say that again.
In 1922, they broke away. It wasn't from Ocean Township. It was from what, Neptune? And they.
No. Yeah, there's a. Let me just hold this map up for a second here.
They actually broke away from the Camp Meeting Association.
There's a family tree, and it started out with everyone in Shrewsbury Township. Then it broke down to Ocean Township, which was 1849, and then it came down to Neptune, 1878. Now, Ocean Grove was founded in 1870, and it was a unique government type situation. But they had a jail in the 2-cell jail in the basement, and they had a police, they had a regular magistrate, and so forth, and they couldn't handle heavy crimes, but they could handle jaywalking, reading the newspaper, that kind of thing.
But in 1922, they broke away from the Camp Meeting Association.
Right, and that was, there was always been discontent. And
how long did that last?
1 year.
Yeah, and that was
1 year. The church versus the state it's a knot within a knot.
So they had their own government for 1 year, and
Right.
then it went back to the Camp Meeting as a result of a Supreme Court decision?
Yes.
Okay. And just a sidebar, most of those people, they got annoyed, moved to Interlaken. And Smith was one of them. And
Now that's a pit of discontent there.
that's exactly what it was.
Okay. Well, the Ocean Grove was founded in 1870. Now, it wasn't until 1875 that the railroad actually came down to Ocean Grove and went on down to Seagirt or Bayhead. And once the railroad started taking trains, they kept coming. They'd have maybe 19, 20 trains a day coming down and loaded with people from the city wanting to get out of the oppressive heat and have a day or 2 days or a weekend at in a leisurely wooded area. I mean, the temperature was very critical to them, and but Stokes, he was president of the Ocean Grove Camp Meeting. He really pushed for the train, and finally, after 2 attempts, the train finally made it down there, and then from there, everything boomed. In other words, Bradley Beach went, Belmar, Avon, and sort of Spring Lake, but but they went in it depends how the people could get there.
Right.
And why they wanted to get there. And that's really fascinating that the train was the modern change of the North Jersey shore. Now, the next thing that changed them was the Garden State Parkway. And once the parkway was in, the people did not drive or did not take the train and go by Ocean Grove. They went down to Ocean County. And of course, the lots were cheap and so forth. But you know, it was an ideal place down there for people.
When was the time when they were part of Ocean Township that they broke away?
They're like 5 years. Well, see, Ocean Grove did not have the legal way of doing this. It was sort of the state legislature that made the movement. In other words, they could opt to either stay with Ocean Township, which is where they broke away from, or stay with Neptune. And they chose Neptune.
What year was that, do you know?
You're picking my brain here. Ask the question again.
I just was curious as to what year they broke away from Ocean Township.
Well, Neptune broke away.
And they were
Ocean Grove was part of the baggage that they took with them.
Okay. Oh.
You know, and that's like 1879.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. You've started an aggressive project over in Founder Park with the fountain.
Yes, we have a fountain there, or had one, and some children put in lots of soap suds and ruined it for a while, and it sort of fell into disuse. The Historical Society has decided to restore it, and we've had a 2.5-year restoration effort. We've raised over $100,000 from 240 people that are involved somewhat in Ocean Grove, although we're getting checks from Washington, D.C., Washington, the state of Seattle, Michigan, Texas. These are people that had memories of being in Ocean Grove when they were children.
Or a connection.
Or a connection.
Who's doing the restoration on the fountain? The company?
Oh, Robinson Iron down in Alabama. Now they're probably the major iron fabrication company in the United States, and he's always sending out brochures on things that he's done, like he did Vulcan, 55-foot statue on the top of a hill in Birmingham, Alabama.
Wow.
And if you've ever seen the statue, I mean, you know, the statue is at least 50 feet high. Restored that. He restores other fountains.
When did he take the old fountain away? Was that this past summer?
It's down there now. It was disassembled. It's being cleaned and it's being checked, and they're getting out some. They have other molds that are the same molds as the Fisk Fountain, and so they're recasting the molds.
So he's got the original molds from the fountain?
He has some of them.
Some of them, okay.
He can make them, you know, which are, I mean, I've been impressed with the clients that he has. And he has Metuchen, right to the north here. They put a horse trough in.
Huh.
You know, all of a sudden, iron fountains and iron objects are becoming very
popular again.
Very popular again.
Now, this is the 150th anniversary of Ocean Grove this coming year.
Yes.
And what do you have planned with the fountain down in Founders Park?
Well, we're going to turn it on. And if the water doesn't flow, I have a ticket that I'm going to go down to Mexico and take my daughter with me and not worry about it. It's going to be put there in April, May, and then on July 27th, they're having the anniversary. The fountain has a history of, it was a memorial to Bishop Fitzgerald, who was the third camp meeting president. and he died over in Hong Kong. He was over there to see his daughter's grave that was there. They were missionaries type thing, and he died there, and so the body came back and they dedicated this fountain to him. They also dedicated next year the Hope Jones organ to him. So he was a very popular bishop.
Now, your daughter Cindy has been working with you on this.
Yes, she prodded me, believe me.
Okay.
Right now we're trying to figure out where the water is and where the electric is in the park.
Right.
Now they had connections there, and then the for some reason they did some work on some of the roads and they cut these lines because they weren't listed. So we can't find them, so we're have to put new lines in.
How big is the fountain?
It's 12 feet high.
And how many tiers? How many levels? 3?
That's a good question.
4.
4 levels.
4 levels.
The one level. Let me just hold this up here. The one level is this part here, from here up to here, was taken away and is down in Birmingham, Alabama. Well, Johnson City, Alabama, and these will be reconstructed. Now the water, there's two pipes that come in here. One pipe comes in, and it goes off from here, the big rim. The other smaller pipe goes on up to here and then drops down like that. So it's kind of interesting. I'm an expert on fountains now.
So, anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I think the fountain is sort of bringing people in Ocean Grove together.
It has.
I've had people, give me checks as I'm walking, but they're all anxious to see the fountain. See, and that's why I'm saying, well, I got my Mexican ticket.
Ted, tell me about the tents in Ocean Grove. We know that there's 114 of them currently, but there had been as many as 900 going back to 1869 when they first started coming for their services. And they actually, that's how the 30 by 60 foot lot started, so that they could fit a tent on it. And gradually, explain about how it grew into a cabin in some portions and how houses.
Well, the average lot in Ocean Grove, the way it was designed, there's over 1,900 lots. I'm sorry, 1,900 lots, and they're all 30 by 60. So you have a variation on a theme of 30 by 60 when you're putting a house up, unless you buy 2 lots, in which case you can have a larger piece of property. Now,
when you say buy 2 lots, you actually mean lease 2 lots.
Lease 2, right, lease 2 lots. Let's see, all right. Now, the tents, they're between 700 to 900 tents at the height of it, which was roughly towards 1880, 1890. Gradually the tents built up. Now the people had a choice. They could buy, they could lease a lot. I have to use that word carefully. And then they can only be there from
May 15th,
May 15th
to September 15th.
to September 15th. And they can leave their property in the back part. Now the tents have a cabin in the back. Now if you're from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, that's called a shanty. And in there you could put your furniture and odds and ends, so that you didn't have to bring down a whole interior furnishings for your use there. Now the tents rent for around, I think, $4,000.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a few numbers, 4 to 6, depending
4
on
to 6,
size and location.
Depending on the size, and they measure them by square footage.
Right.
You know, and if you have a lot, if you have a little shanty in the back, you know, that's included. I mean, now they all have porches in the front, so that if you're walking along there, you look in and say, "Oh, nice." People will open up their tent, their flaps to them and say, "Come on in and look at here." And they all have bathrooms. They all have showers. They all have hot water. They all have gas.
Cable TV, internet service.
Yeah, and they gradually eliminated the tents as people became more familiar with Ocean Grove and wanted to stay down for the summer.
Right.
So they got rid of the tents, and then they put in a cottage. And then from the cottage, it then went to a 4-story, 3-story hotel, which is quite common. They form the tent people have their own unique relationship with each other. You know, if you're living next door to somebody for the summer, you gradually talk about things, you know, family matters and so forth. These people will go to the wedding off outside of Ocean Grove. They're considered part of the family. They go to funerals. They have meetings. Oh, let's go down and see so and so. You know, but they all, once they're in their tents, they love those tents.
It's a very close-knit community, I have found. And on average, they've been there 25 plus years.
Right.
And the only time a tent really becomes available is someone passes away.
Yeah.
And they look after one another.
Right. Well, we have a video out on it called Tents and Tent Living, done by Bob Green, and it's been quite popular. They have a dialogue between Anna Nichols and her sister, Marty Ricada, and they talk about what it was like to be there. You know, it's precious to see it. Well, again, Ocean Grove, I forgot to mention, Ocean Grove really is a tent porch city, and the porches are very important. It forms a barrier between the street and the house, but it also gives you a place to sit and talk to people, and have intercourse with individuals and that type of thing. And people are always wanting to rent the tents. You know, when we tell them, well, it takes you 3 to 5 years to get on the list, unless you know somebody, and then it's not a case of who you know. It's a case of if you donate money to the camp meeting and you participate in the programs, that type of thing. We have a house tour, and we always have 2 tents on the house tour.
This coming year, we're going to have a tent tour.
Tent tour, yeah.
In July.
That would be, yeah. People are fascinated with these canvas things.
Well, Ted, thank you very much. We certainly appreciate your insight and the history of Ocean Grove, and we wish you really good luck with your fountain.
Thank you, Bob. I know you'll be there to celebrate.
Oh, definitely.
We'll be serving lemonade.
Yes. From the fountain.
From the fountain.